I have a standard mantra, okay? And that is, every day is a great day. I have my faith, my family, and live in the finest country in the world. I say it every day, every chance I get. And people ask me, well, why, how can you be so positive? And, why do you say that? I say, well, number one, as a very young 24-year-old company commander in Vietnam in combat, there were times I didn't know if I was going to be alive the next moment, much less see the next sunrise. When you're in those circumstances, what is important in life becomes real focused, and that is faith, family, and living in the finest country in the world. Now, so then people will come back at me and say, well, how can you say that when we have so much division in our country, okay? And I say, listen, I'm a little bit longer in tooth than you are, and when I was a kid, I've seen the improvements in our society when it comes to race relations. Now, I'm a minority, so I get it. And I told them, the odds of me becoming, when I was a kid, the odds of me becoming a major general in the United States Army were slim and next to none, okay? When we've had an African-American president who was reelected. And then I tell people, when President Kennedy was elected, that was a big deal. And a lot of people don't know why. And I say, because he was Catholic. But today, that's not a big deal, right? And in those days, that was a big deal. So I tell people, every day is a great day. I have my faith, my family. We live in the finest country in the world. Well, that saying was challenged about 5.5 years ago when I had some health challenges, which I think I didn't mention it earlier today, right?
No, you haven't.
I was still working in the financial services industry, and I got up in the morning, I was shaving, and I felt this pain in my chest. And I mean, it wasn't a serious pounding, and I wasn't sweating, nauseous. I didn't have a temperature. So I thought of something I ate. Give it 5 minutes, it'll go away, right? It didn't go away. So I told my wife, this is not good. So I finished shaving and dressing, though, and she drove me to the emergency room of the hospital. So I walk in and I say, hey, I've got this pain in my chest. I don't know what it is. So they do an EKG, and they said, you have had a heart attack. Well, suddenly all these doctors and nurses swoop into the ER. They undress me. They put me in a hospital gown. I'm on a gurney, and I'm on my way to the operating room, right? So I'm in the corridor and on this gurney, and I say to myself, self, can you say today is a great day? And I said, I absolutely can. I survived Vietnam. I have a wonderful wife and children, and I, most importantly, have my faith. So in 24 hours, I had 3 operations. The first operation was for the heart attack. Okay, so they do an angiogram. They found out my LAD, which is the widowmaker artery, was 90% blocked. So they do an angioplasty, put a stent in. So by 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm in the recovery room. So I'm figuring, well, that's the end of it, right? That wasn't the end of it. The second thing that happened was my heart cavity started to fill up with liquid. It's called effusion. So I had to go back in they had to put a hole in my chest so they could put a tube there so they could drain this liquid. And it filled up a bottle. It took about 24 hours to do that, okay? The third thing that happened then was my kidneys failed. So I had to go back in, and they had to put another hole in my chest so they could hook up a dialysis machine, okay? So the standard procedure, every time I was rolled into the operating room, is what's your name, what's your birthday, how do you feel, okay? So I'm on the operating table, and I say, Jim Mukoyama, August 3rd, 44. Every day is a great day. I have my faith, my family, and live in the finest country in the world. I can't tell you the effect that had on the doctors and nurses. The first operation, the doctor said, what is your faith? And I said, well, since you asked me, Doc, I said, I'm a Christian. Christ is my Savior. You're a skilled physician, skilled nurses, but I'm in God's hands. So whatever he decides, I'm okay with. So let's get on with it. So the second operation, there was a nurse, And she said, where do you go to church? And I said, well, I attend Willow Creek Community Church. And she said, I do too. So no coincidence. The third operation, this was the coolest thing. There was a male nurse who was wearing a camouflage gown. And I said, you must have been in the Army. And the guy said, yeah, I was a medic. And I said, well, hey, I just want you to know, I retired as a 2-star general, so take good care of me, will you? And so that was kind of my testing of all that. Now, the final thing I tell you, which was a God thing, months later, I had to go through dialysis, okay? So I'm going through this dialysis, and 3 months later, I get a donor. And the donor was our daughter, okay? But our daughter is not our biological daughter. We adopted her 30-something years ago, and yet she was a match. So, guys, when I say every day is a great day, I have my faith, my family, and live in the finest country in the world, I can truly say that. And every day is an encouragement to me, okay? Today was an encouragement this morning when I was honored to participate in the National Day of Prayer with the 79th Theater Sustainment Command at Los Alamitos. And this podcast is an encouragement to me. So I just want you to know that. And remember, every day is a great day. Faith, family, we live in the finest country in the world.